Karens just seem to have no boundaries, right? They recognize no limits and consider themselves above the most basic of rules. Now, have you ever wondered what happens when a Karen crosses paths with the famous Royal Guards? In today's video, we'll be seeing a bunch of Karens mess with the Royal Guards only to get what they deserve. Now, let's get into it. Royal Guards are not someone you can easily mess with. This woman learned that the hard way. Watch as she blocks the guard's way, only to have herself shoved away. She must have thought that the guard would make way for her. Well, she thought wrong. It seems the woman we see here threw something at the guard before this video started recording. Thankfully, she was quickly reprimanded for the offense. She could have easily been pushed away if she got too close while messing with the guard. Luckily for her, she got away lightly this time. Are you curious to know what happens when you touch a Royal Guard? Here's a clip to satisfy your curiosity. As it turns out, these burly figures don't allow any touching, so don't be surprised when you get a good telling off. Do not touch the Queen's Guard! This guy should have just been happy with the selfie he got. These tourists clearly need a lesson in respect. Watch as they attempt to mock and intimidate this guard, even going as far as to mimic the way he walks. The guard eventually loses his patience and shouts back, which is exactly what these tourists deserve.
Step back from the Winter Castle Guard!
If you think kids get a free pass when it comes to making fun of Royal Guards, this next video is for you. Well, it's pretty much the norm for kids to play jokes and have some laughs. Unfortunately for them, they are not exempt from being disciplined by the Royal Guards. Watch as these kids' laughs get immediately reversed.
Get off the fence!
One rule tourists should really be taught is that the horse's reins are off limits. If you do decide to break this particular rule, here's what you can expect.
Get back!
If you don't want to be shouted at and humiliated, you might just keep your distance from the horse and the guard on your next trip to London.
Stand back to the Queen's Guard! Do not touch the reins!
If you happen to visit London, you might want to refrain from imitating the guards when they do their formation changes. Otherwise, you might just end up getting humiliated in front of other tourists. Let what happened in this video be a lesson for all of you watching. Some people just never seem to get it. The past few clips are perfect examples of why you should never make fun of these guards. Here's another video showing how hard-headed some tourists are, despite all the warning signs.
Step back from the Queen's Guard!
Watch as a tourist is shouted away for touching a guard's boots. I mean, come on. The guard was mounted on a horse. Any sudden movement could easily make the horse agitated and endanger everyone's safety. When you see a guard on a horse, you should be extra mindful to behave. This next clip is rather unintentional. The lady here didn't notice that a guard was about to pass by behind where she was standing. The next thing she knew, she was already being pushed to the side. As a tip, be sure to watch your backs when you're in such a situation. Here's a male Karen who thinks he's hilarious making fun of this Royal Guard. Thankfully, nearby police eventually warned and reprimanded him and his friend who was recording. Lesson learned. Thankfully, it seems not everybody is unable to behave themselves around the Royal Guard. Here's a heartwarming video of a little boy dressed up as one, and he seems to fit the role very well as he does his own set of commands. Watch as the guards show their respect to the little chap. These Royal Guards really have seen everything. The number of Karens they have to endure on a daily basis is no joke. Here's another one who got a taste of her own medicine.
Get back!
Oops. This little girl was experiencing a childhood highlight, being greeted by none other than the Queen herself. Immediately after, though, she was accidentally hit by the guard. Not everybody can be perfect, even the most highly trained of soldiers. Here's a royal guard who's clearly having a bad day. While the tourists are a good distance away from him, he seems to be bothered by the fact that they're recording him. Perhaps he woke up on the wrong side of the bed. Even the most highly trained soldiers can have their moments. See here as this guard momentarily stumbles in front of tourists. It's definitely refreshing to see them be a little human.
I'm fine.
This royal guard was able to keep his cool the entire time. His trick? Well, instead of shouting at the tourists, he simply directed his annoyance with a stern march. Just look at the anger in those stomps. He clearly meant business. Considering how ruthless most of these guards are when it comes to tourists blocking their way, this lady seems to have it easier than most. Instead of the usual shoving, she was told to step away in a surprisingly polite manner. Lucky for her on this occasion, I guess. Drunk people are always entertaining to watch, but boy, they can be stupid. Watch as this tipsy guy walks over to the horse and eventually musters up the courage to try and touch it. As we learned earlier, this is a big no-no. As you can imagine, the next few seconds are filled with the pure anger of the royal guard in charge of the animal.
Get back from the Queen's lifeguard!
Here's another tourist blocking a guard's path. While he may have received the shout, he was lucky enough to avoid being pushed to the ground.
Make way!
Karens and tourists seem to go out of their way to disturb the royal guards. Here's one who took her time dancing right beside the royal guard. This guard simply marched away, but it could have been a lot worse for her. This guy probably got the worst of it all and probably left with a black eye. Watch what happens as he gets too close to the guard. I guess that makes for an interesting remembrance of his vacation, although I'm not sure if it's a memory he'd be quick to brag to his friends about. Here's another guy who thinks he's cool for trailing this guard. Well, in a few seconds he's going to get exactly what he deserves.
Get back from the Queen's guard!
You are free to take a picture with the royal guards as long as you can keep a respectable distance. This guy here on the right side certainly did not understand the instruction. Just as he deserved, he gets shouted at by the royal guard. The next time you come too close to the guard, you might want to take a step back, especially if you're the one holding the camera. Have you ever wondered what would happen when you challenge a royal guard to a staring contest? Well, this guy did too, but it didn't turn out quite how he expected it to.
Stand back!
The guy should just stick with staring at himself in a mirror if he doesn't want the same thing to happen again.
Stand back!
So that's all for today's episode, folks. If you enjoyed it, leave a like and share it with your friends. You can also comment on which types of videos you'd like to see from this channel in the future. Also, subscribe to Trend Loops if you haven't already. You'll want to check out our other videos. Stay tuned for more. Thanks for watching.